Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Demystifying AI for MSPs. For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Will Dowling. I'm a product marketing manager here at ConnectWise, and I have a phenomenal panel with me today to talk about some really cool stuff when it comes to AI, using it for tools like marketing and automation. And we're going to dig into the intersection between hyperautomation and AI today. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off for introductions. I'm going to kick it right over here to my right. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Oz Hawk, Vice President of Product Management at ConnectWise, leading the hyperautomation practice.
You notice that he never refers to us as, awesome or,
You're awesome. You're great. You're awesome.
My name is Kyle Jackson. I'm responsible for the Innovation Lab here at ConnectWise.
Keith Sartain, Senior Director of IT, managing mostly internal functions for technology.
All right, we do have a remote guest with us today. So Jim, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. I'm Jim Haney. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Novatech, talking to you live from Nashville, Tennessee.
Awesome, man. We appreciate you joining us.
Jim, what's Novatech?
What is
Novatech?
Yeah. So Novatech is we call ourselves a managed office provider. We've been around since 1998, and we do everything from managed IT services, managed print services, cloud, and cybersecurity. And our main goal is how do we simplify business technology for our customers, right? And just give them one contact to call for everything. We provide services nationwide throughout the entire United States.
That is awesome, man. We're glad.
It's a very tight little commercial. There we go.
A very tight little commercial. I love
Good job.
Love it. Good pitch.
Yeah.
So I like to kick off every episode of this talking about what's got everybody excited this week. So Oz, I'm going to kick it over to you first. What's got you excited this week, man?
So, you know what? There was a controversial topic at the dinner table around. They're fun, right? It was around the use of AI around English, specifically writing poems, and the authenticity that goes behind it. And I think it can be applied to all sorts of things, whether you're writing corporate emails, whether you're writing personal notes. I mean, you start putting it through your choice of Bard or ChatGPT, you can create, I mean, everyone's a poet all of a sudden, right? And the debate was, is it as authentic if you put in the keywords and have it write it for you and then send it to somebody, as a show of affection of, the roses are red, the violets are blue, but ChatGPT, wrote it all for you, right? I mean, it just has the same effect for people. And we went around the table, and for me, it doesn't matter. It's a thought that counts. I don't care who writes it, but it was a pretty cool debate to have around the table.
I like that.
That's a good combo.
With the whole family.
With the whole family. Yeah. So I know my wife doesn't watch these webinars because I've already shared that a lot of my personal, let's just say, interactions, holiday cards, that kind of stuff, have been enhanced for the last couple of years. And she feels better. She feels better about our relationship because of it. So
that's awesome.
Why are you immediately such a great poet, Kyle?
Yeah.
You're so sincere. You're just so sincere.
Yeah.
I did see a discussion on the Turing test. If you can't devise a test to tell if it's real or not, then it's real. But that topic came up in the can you fall in love with a robot, right? And then the Turing test was, if you can't devise a test to tell that your love is not real, then it's real. So I don't know if that's true. It feels weird. I think it's a new era. We have to figure it out. But I think you're right. If I received a nice poem or whatever, I would appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. Jim, what's your thoughts?
Oz, yours kind of made me think of something that I had something else, and then Oz's topic is making me shift gears. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how Meta specifically, so Instagram, Facebook, but specifically on Instagram, if anyone posts an image now, and if there was any sort of AI editing, it's been saying made with AI. So you have all these content creators who may have used Photoshop to remove something, enhance some color. It's coming across now as made with AI. And so I guess Adobe, and I haven't fact checked any of this stuff. So, but what they were saying on the podcast was guess Adobe is being very, very responsible if there's any sort of manipulation, even if it's like, hey, we edited, a small thing or whatever.
Mhm.
It's putting in the metadata that it's
Oh.
had AI. So when the user then or the creator then puts it up on Instagram, it's saying it was made with AI, and it may have just been like a small portion. So I think it's like to Oz, to your point, like writing and stuff like that. It's like, how much is AI and then how much is still human?
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic, but that's one. My original one, though, before I heard Oz's, was I was actually, I'm really excited about the new AI integration that Apple's doing with the latest iOS updates.
Yeah.
I think for AI specifically, it's such a hot topic. It's almost oversaturated in our daily conversations in the news and everything. And I think for the average person or most people, they don't even know, where do I start, right? How do I
Yeah.
use it? What does it even mean? And so I love the fact that Apple's integrating that into their OS more from a feature than a product. It's like, hey, this is helping you do something versus something you need to use, or it's integrating into actual applications that people are already comfortable with using. So I thought that was really cool. I'm excited about it. I think more and more people will start using AI and get comfortable with it in some fashion. So that's what's got me interested and excited.
So fun story. Sorry, fun
I
story.
love fun stories.
I had to look good, so I went and got a haircut yesterday, and I'm in the barber shop. And barbershop is typically a place where you engage in a lot of conversations, and the topics vary, and who knows what's going to come out of that discussion. But my barber and I've been seeing the same barber for a long time, so he knows me. So we start engaging in conversations. He said, "Hey, let me ask you, should I be afraid of AI?" So I go into it, and the whole tune of this barbershop just shut up and started listening, and you could see their faces completely go cold from what I was talking about. And I was like, and honestly, I said, guys, I'm excited about most of this stuff, but I mean, the reality is there's some potential here.
Yeah.
So I destroyed a lot of dreams yesterday at the barbershop.
All right, I love it.
Fun use case example. I gotta share this since
All right.
Oz talked about his family. I'm going to use the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
On the road trip last week, in the family, multiple hours, 6-7 hour drives.
Mhm.
You don't want kids just sitting in the back seats playing on devices the whole time. So looking for ways to engage. Of course, we played the license plate. What state could you find? We played all the games we could. And by the way, my kids are like 13 and 11. They're not 2, but 13, 11, and 5. But so full range of games. It hit me while I was driving. Hey, maybe I can leverage ChatGPT. So I thought about it for a second. My kids are avid readers, so we took turns continuing books that they had finished. So hey, give me the name of a book or a series that you read. I'm like, hey, what was the last one? So we named it by title, and it had the ChatGPT chat going in the car, writing the next chapter of the new book that didn't exist. And they loved it. So they were building their own story, engaging with ChatGPT in the process, and continuing this arc that hadn't even been written and probably won't be the next story. But for them, it was extremely interactive. So it was,
I love it.
A use case
That's awesome.
That not typical. Nobody at OpenAI thought, hey, this is how you entertain your kids. But it was perfect. It was great.
That is awesome.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
And
I'm gonna steal that.
Go for it.
I'm
Next
gonna
road trip.
taking that, stealing it. All right, so we've heard it here first. Kyle's has new uses for AI that we haven't even thought of yet. Love it.
Daily.
So, Kyle, other than road trips, what's got you excited, man?
So there's a couple things going on in the news that are interesting. It's always interesting when a government or governing body starts putting out their guidelines. So NATO put out some guidelines. Jess, if you don't mind, sharing that link out with the audience. And they put out some guidelines, basically looking at responsibility use and interoperability. It's the same things that you would expect that everybody else has released. But from a NATO perspective, which does it touches a lot of different things, but most of us think of NATO as a a joint force military body, right? So their thought process around, if you read between the lines, was around, safety and control and management of that with all the governing members of NATO. So interesting read. It's not that long of a read, but might be worth taking a look at. MIT did something cool. They always do cool things, but they released I'm sure you saw this. They released which actually was a DARPA-funded project, a sequel, a Gen AI sequel technology or tool. So there have been some challenges with leveraging SQL data with Gen AI, and they figured out how to cross some of that. So those applications for that are absolutely going to reach down into your world, Jim, right? So being able to go into your customers' environments, attach AI onto a SQL environment and get real benefit there. I think those are practical use cases. So that was research done by them. It was DARPA funded. Google was a part of it, but really cool stuff coming out of MIT. Of course, our favorite AI company, OpenAI. There's always news about OpenAI, but this week's news is Microsoft vacated their observer seat on the board.
And Apple.
And the rationale for it from Microsoft, at least what they said publicly, was that they don't need them anymore. OpenAI's compliance and ethics arm of their company is doing a great job. They're no longer needed as an oversight. And you'll recall that they took that seat when the whole Sam Altman thing was going on, when he was ousted. So that's interesting. There are others who are suggesting that they're leaving because they're getting a lot of antitrust pressure in the EU right now. With some of the lawsuits that they're carrying.
They both left about the same time.
So
which I think brings up a interesting point. I think I've mentioned this. These companies, $1 billion used to be big. When I was a kid. Now these things are $4 trillion, $5 trillion. There's going to come a time where, especially with Europe and other parts of the world, where these companies are too big and too powerful, and I think there's going to have a lot more scrutiny. So, Microsoft has to try to grow and has to do all the right things, but threading that needle so that they're not squeezing out every player in the world and that kind of thing is going to be interesting. But I think regulation and breaking up these companies will come up at some point. I think it's inevitable. There's so much at stake with this that someone will not want all of it to be in the hands of one or two people.
That's fair.
Well, and
it's interesting. It's interesting though, guys, on the Microsoft and OpenAI topic though. If you've experimented, and I'm sure everyone in the room has, with output quality that's not linked to Microsoft apps, right? If you're taking just, hey, I want to create a document or a blog post or whatever it is, and you feed it both into OpenAI and Copilot, your results mileage varies a lot.
It does.
And so it is interesting. I mean, even though they're both, even though Microsoft or Copilot is utilizing the backbone of OpenAI, it's still not at the same clip. Now, there's benefits obviously to using Copilot. There's benefits to, especially in the Microsoft ecosystem. But it is interesting.
Yeah, well, and obviously, Jim, the rationale and the reason for it is Copilot has a whole lot more happening with it than being passed through just straightforward with ChatGPT. And honestly, those governance elements are extremely useful and beneficial. But again, it does impact the output.
Well, and it goes both ways. When I say mileage may vary, if you're working within the Microsoft ecosystem, you're getting much better output from Copilot than sometimes you're getting from OpenAI. It just depends on what the use case is, right? So, but I actually had a meeting myself, and we have an AI subcommittee here at Novatech. It's a small group, but we've been meeting probably for a good 5 or 6 months now. And we had a meeting with OpenAI to talk about, if we wanted to take on the enterprise version, kind of a walled garden version, and And they were kind of singing the same tune, right? Like, hey, it depends on your use case because we were telling them, hey, we're also evaluating Copilot. And it was interesting to hear their thoughts. So.
Very interesting.
Well, the last thing that I came across was pretty interesting. Is there's a company out there called Evolutionary Scale that just this week, their former Meta-backed scientists, when Meta shut down their biology section where they were working with biology segments and building large language models around that. They set out and started another company, and they this week in a proof point showed that they had created some new fluorescent proteins that previously didn't exist. So they've trained a large model on protein structure, and again, there's a lot of that happening in the data sciences and medical sciences world. So again, in my debate at the barbershop, the reality is scientists are now going to be, those people who are studying and creating and going further are now going to be at a midway point instead of starting at zero. With their analysis of their work, and here's evidence of one of those where there's a new protein structure being built that didn't exist before because of this large language AI model.
Both exciting and terrifying.
Yeah, legit. My first thought was 28 days later. You remember?
Right. Yeah,
remember
28 days later. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jurassic Park. Yeah.
I saw this. This kind of blew my mind. I would have expected that to be a transformer model or whatever. I learned that they use diffusion models to generate proteins and generate molecules. I'm like, diffusion, like where you add noise and then take the noise out and you get something new. Like that's how we, when you make images and you wonder how this image is like a face, but it's not any person's face. You're starting from kind of an outline and it's just filling in the pixels. But they're actually using diffusion models, which hurts my brain to think about, and kind of reversing a process of starting in one place and then going and making protein synthesis and molecules out of that kind of model. I'm like, I don't even know how you make that work, but somehow it does. And that's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Last tidbit.
All right.
And
talking with all the tidbits today.
Well, I mean, I didn't even plan on this, but I just remembered that 11 Labs, our favorite voice cloning technology out there, released an app called their Reader, so you can leverage.
What's it called?
Now, it's a 11 Labs Reader. I'm showing you my phone. You can see it. But basically, I can have it read anything in a voice of my choosing. So some of the example text. So I had on the road last week, I had my youngest, we read The Tale of Peter Rabbit in my voice, and I didn't have to say a word.
That's crazy.
Yeah, really, really cool tech.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Again, on both sides.
And terrifying.
We've talked about it, terrifying technology, but cool when you can use it for stuff that helps.
I feel like the consensus we've all come to is, at least in this series, is AI is equal parts awesome and terrifying constantly.
Oh crap!
Oh crap! What have we done? Yeah.
Jim, this is a good segue for you. So if anybody's going to use, voice cloning for good, it's content creator, right? It's the guy in the marketing seat or the gal in the marketing seat, because you spend a lot of time building content, and the reality is we're now at a place where like Runway just updated their text to video model. Like they're limited at 10 seconds. Sora's a minute, but Sora doesn't exist, so you can go create from text a 10-second clip that didn't exist before, leveraging technology. You can have that script build out or have AI build out a script for you from a marketing perspective, and then have the voiceover already done and synced with somebody reading it. Like the capabilities to go from 0 to 60 to 70 to 80% done are there, and they're there now. So are you guys tapping into these types of technologies, or what have you guys played with so far?
Oh yeah. So on that, in that specific example, so in, not that long ago, when we would do a video, I had several on speed dial and that we would work with voiceover actors and talent. The process, and this isn't meant to, and there's still a very strong place for those individuals, right? But it would take, they have to get the copy, they read it, they send you a variety of versions. You decide which ones you want. There might be some editing back and forth, and there's just constant tether or back and forth. Today, from a Novatech perspective, we're kicking out at least 1 or 2 videos a week, and most all of them have voiceover, and all those voiceovers are AI generated. So what we do, we have a tool that we use. And we'll do the script. I usually review the script, I'll edit the script, we'll get it over. And what's neat about leveraging AI to do that is you can actually put different in the script, you can put pauses and spaces, and you can change inflections and stuff like that. But it gives you such a good variety, right? So if I say, hey, you know what, this would be really good, I need a certain personality type voice, not celebrity personality, but maybe a real deep voice, or maybe I need a woman's voice for this, that would be nice. Or you can mix it up, and it just makes production really, really fast. So what happens in my world, my in-house videographer will make the video, he'll use the script that we provided, he'll use the AI voiceover, he'll send it back to me. I usually have edits, right? And so, but it's like on the fly, within like 10 minutes, I'll get the revised version back, because he's just changing it in the software. The AI is kicking out the new VO and sending it right back to me. So it's, to your point, I think someone made earlier, it takes us from, instead of starting at scratch and a long process, it allows us to jump almost in the midstream. And then when we're doing the editing, it just allows us to be very, very fast. So, and it just increases our output, which is key, right? When we're doing good stuff. So
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what would that mean for, again, your Novatech is, has a reach across the country. So
Mhm.
by scale, you're not a small MSP by any stretch of the imagination. But put on the imaginary hat of being an MSP that has, 10 employees whose marketing budget is, whatever they feel like they can spend this month. How are these tools going to enable MSPs of a smaller scale to actually get there?
I think it just allows you to be more nimble. And the tools that we're using, and if anyone's interested, they're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I can share it. I don't have them in front of me right now to give you the exact names, but all of them have monthly subscriptions. So you can experiment, you can try. But it's not a substitution. None of these are a substitution for the actual talent. And we were talking before the session started. My view on AI, especially from a creative standpoint, and I think overall is how we should use it, is think of it as a really, really talented intern, right? Somebody that, hey, they got straight A's, they were really good, they show up, they're punctual, but you got to check their work, and they're not able to do it start to finish. And they can. The work you may get something and it may look good, but when you really dig into it, it needs some editing, it needs some refining. And I think if you look at it that way, especially from a marketing perspective, and if I'm a smaller MSP, just knowing that, hey, I might be able to speed up my output, but I still need to make sure that I'm doing QCing, and I have somebody who's actually in the driver's seat, who's making those decisions, you still got to tell it what you want, and then you got to be able to edit what it's kicking out. So like for us, for copywriting, we've gotten some good prompts down to where it's got our voice down, our tone, but even then it's maybe 25-30%, and it's still us doing 70% of the editing and writing and taking it across the finish line. But it's gotten us from 0 to 30 a lot faster than it was without it. So
I absolutely agree with you there. As a fellow marketer, Jim, I'm one of those people that I can sit and stare at a blank page for 10 minutes before I put some thoughts down. But if I can just sit there and take some bullet points or some ideas, I can run them through, Copilot, GPT, whatever, just to get thoughts on paper. And then it's 25% of the way there. The rest of it is all me. But it really helps to build ideation, at least, with a lot of what I do. You guys doing a lot of that as well?
We do. A lot of ideation, a lot of just brainstorming. We'll throw it into ChatGPT, or we have a few other tools that we leverage. And then it's like, okay, now we have the clay that we like, and we have the shapes that we want. Now we need to go create something from it. And that's not to say that you can't get output that looks okay. And to most people, it would probably be good enough, but I will tell you, and I'll throw the warning out to everyone listening. It doesn't take long before you can tell, hey, that was AI written, or hey, that was generated not by a human. And not that that's bad. I mean, hey, it is what it is. It's almost becoming, it's like, hey, I didn't do the math on paper. I used a calculator. But still, you need the combination between the human element and the tool. And if you think about it, like even using the math example. I'm sure at one point when calculators first came out, everyone thought, hey, we're going to forget how to do math. It's just a tool to help us be that much more efficient. It's not a replacement for what's up here and the actual creator that's leveraging the tool. So that would be my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I think you had a great idea with, leverage it as you would an intern or an extra collaborator in your process. I mean, it's, again, it's that extra mind that can take and reframe some of the stuff that you're doing and just help you from, again, starting at 20, 30%. That's better than starting at 0 every time, right?
Yep, exactly. And if your copy uses the word delve, that's a telltale sign it was written by an AI. So
did you see why that was? Did you see the report on why that was?
No, why is that? I missed that.
Oh, no. It's actual thing. The RLHF, the reinforcement learning with human feedback, that process, OpenAI specifically, and maybe the others, they used offshore people to do RLHF. I know there was 40, so they published how many people did it. So, ChatGPT finished training in like 2019, but wasn't released till 2022 because all that time was RLHF and fine tuning and all this stuff. So they give it to humans and they give, they ask it and they have 3 different creative ways that it comes back. And then they pick the one of the 3 that they like the best, that meets all the, so they get all this alignment stuff. So RLHF is that human feedback piece. Well, they offshore to Nigeria, and Nigeria uses that word a lot. And when they learn English for whatever reason. And so a lot of their stuff started getting that. So that's where it came from.
I love the word delve.
Yeah, but it's disproportionately represented. Like
the other
now of documents, you can see in 2022 the word delve.
It's spiked.
That's like the silent indicator of that's the canary in the coal mine of how much people are using AI to generate 100%. Content. Yeah.
The other one is if you see it'll intro a lot, and you'll see this in blogs all over the place, guys. If you start looking, it's like one of those things. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and so it starts showing up everywhere. But it has variations. But in today's digital landscape, today's modern, it's today's something landscape. It uses that a ton, and it sounds good until you see it 500 times when you're reading stuff. So.
I wonder, building on that, we keep saying this, like, we know that this show will probably be obsolete in 48 seconds after it's done. Like, you'll be able to look back in the not too
we're already there.
Yeah, and say, did he start the show with something that's obsolete? I don't know.
Yeah.
But AIs don't have memory, right? They don't know you. A couple of things that both Apple marketed it better. They called it personalization. Right. And Microsoft called it recall. But at the end of the day, they're learning something about you so that you don't have to feed it what your customizations are. And OpenAI is working on what they call memory and these things where they can keep something about the way you prefer. And so a year from now, will the AI through retrieval augmentation or a memory construct or something know that every time that you see copy, you remove the word delve and you don't like it written this way, and you don't like that's too wordy or what. Well, it learns some of those attributes of the way that you would prefer it, so that it could have taken it further. So your 30 becomes 50%, right?
Yep.
And that's what we don't have a lot of now. It's just kind of, it's like a one shot, and you're just asking the AI, but it doesn't know you or what you like or what you would have done or how you like to speak or the tone or the education level or whatever. All the things that go into your creativity are there for it and aren't exposed to it. It wasn't trained on you.
Right.
But
Right.
there may be mechanisms for it to learn how you iterate through that process, such that the bar just keeps moving up a little bit more, 30%, 40%,
100%.
50%, right? And then
100%. Yeah. I think,
it'll take
one of the things that I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that is so spot on. And I think one of the things that is a common mistake, hell, I made it at one point, right? When I first started diving into this, is thinking when you put in that first prompt, and well, I know we want to dive deeper into this in a different topic, or a different session, but it's not one and done. It's never one and done. I mean, you can say, hey, and you can put a really healthy prompt in there, like, hey, with a lot of direction, and there's elements you want to make sure that are in those prompts. But even then, it's not one and done. And so think of it going back to the intern, think of that intern coming back a couple times with different variations, and you're making edits and you're telling them to go back. And to your point on learning your tone, learning your voice, learning not to use delve, stuff like that. But one best practice that I'll share on here that I actually learned through a course that I recently took is when you're done, let's say you had 3 or 4 variations of prompts that you went back and forth and you finally got something that you thought looked pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. Go back in and just put in the prompt, now critique your last version. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it now looks at it as if it didn't do it, and it looks at it with fresh set of eyes, and it comes back and says, oh, you know what, this could actually be refined a little bit better. And that actually, every time I do that, I get a better output, and then I can take it across the finish line and finish it. But always ask it at the end, say, now critique your last version.
I learned something new today.
Thank you. It's the classic QA step in automation, right? Yeah. Evaluate yourself. So,
yeah. I love that.
A lot of the agentic frameworks, that's precisely what they're doing. They're some of them, there's one of them out, I can't remember the name, but it submits the same question to 3 different AI models. Mm-hmm. It does open source ones, so it can host itself, so it doesn't get too expensive. Then it has all 3 analyze all 3 results that they got to say which one of these is best, or how would you critique these, and then it does a 3rd step of that. So you've gone through a million tokens to get a response. Now, if it's hosted locally and it's just Llama and it's things where you can control the costs, but your output quality beats GPT 4.0, the badly named.
Oh yeah.
But but what you're describing is prompt engineering done by a human. That's prompt engineering of sorts done, kind of by an agent inside of, between multiple.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would share, if you're using the tool a lot, again, remember it's shoot for 25 to 30% of your getting you across the line, never 100%. But if you're doing something over and over, I use just a text editor and I save my prompts that are effective.
Yes,
and then I just reuse them. And so you're not going blind every single time saying, okay, now what did I type last time that worked, that I liked? And I have like a series that I go through for individual tasks that I'm trying to do. A great example of that is I use a tool called Otter. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It will record a meeting, it'll transcribe it, it'll give you a recording of it and a full transcription. I'm sure Microsoft Teams is going to get there pretty soon and doing exactly what it does. It'll do a summary, like an executive summary. I don't love their summaries, but I'll take the transcript and I have a prompt that I've created that then I upload the transcript into OpenAI or ChatGPT, and then I put my prompt in there and it gives me a summary exactly how I want it. And it gives me a too long didn't read version and then a longer version with key actions, next steps, who do I need to follow up with, what's the timeline, and it's great for after a meeting. Then you can forward it out, and you look like the smartest guy in the room. I promise. So.
Love it. So I actually want to throw this out to our audience. If you're watching today and you want to dive deeper into the science of strategic prompting, go ahead and post in the comments. Let us know what you would love to see if we take a deep dive into that topic soon, because I think that's something that we could really provide a lot of good feedback and content on. I mean, it's a science. It really is. It's not just, hey, let me throw this in Chat GPT and get some answers. You're going to get bad prompts or bad responses every time. But if you're doing those good prompts like you were talking about, Jim, like that's really where you can take it from that 5% to that 35%, right?
100%. 100%.
Here's the seventh point we'll make on that webinar. I'll go ahead and tell you now. I realized, Jim, that you know what, it's great at a lot of things, and it's fantastic at writing prompts.
Yeah.
So I stopped breaking the tasks down in my mind, because this is what I was previously approaching the problem. I would break the tasks down in my mind and try to build the perfect prompt to accomplish that task. I was like, you know what? It doesn't know what I'm actually trying to accomplish. That referring to it isn't it? The AI doesn't know what I'm trying to accomplish. If I just tell it, hey, I'm trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z for these purposes to this audience, I give it as much background detail. Can you help me build a prompt that gets me the greatest output for X, Y, and Z? And I will also tailor that with, oh, and by the way, I'm going to need an image for this that I'm going to run through Midjourney. Can you also take the full, and I've done this 100 times, take the full text of this thing and give me the perfect prompt for Midjourney for this? Like, it's so good at understanding syntax, and if I give it enough information, it will encapsulate that in the perfect prompt, and it does. I'd say 70% of the time I get something that I almost run with 1 or 2 iterations afterwards, instead of I got 9 iterations or 10 iterations of the same prompt before I get the right output I want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, there's a great quote. I'm going to butcher it because I don't have it in front of me, but it was from someone at MIT who said, you know, the new coding language is common language, right? It's just going in and typing. But the pro tip I would give you on those prompts afterwards is just tell it to critique it afterwards.
Critique itself. I love it.
Critique itself.
All right. I want to switch gears a little bit, guys.
Yeah, he created the opportunity for you, because earlier, Jim, you were talking about, hey, if there's anything that's repeatable, right? Anything that you do that's repeatable, you try to, you know, encapsulate it and, you know, shorten the process by leveraging AI.
Yeah.
It goes back to our original question, which what we were aiming for some of the discussion of this meeting was, what is that intersection of hyperautomation and workflow and AI and those technologies? How do they overlap? That's where you're going.
Yeah, it's absolutely where I'm going. Thank you for stealing my question, Kyle. So Oz, I want to kick it over to you first, since you are our VP over hyperautomation here at ConnectWise. Like, that's your world, man.
Yeah, it is.
For viewers who may not be as versed in AI versus hyperautomation, let's quickly define hyperautomation as we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you'll see it in the conversation we just had. Like, we talked about AI, we talked about learning, we talked about language processing. Like, so the definition of hyperautomation is it's not one technology; it's a combination of technologies that allow you to automate beyond standard automation. You take your business processes, streamline them, and then you take the repetitive tasks that Kyle was mentioning, and you remove those repetitive tasks. You use AI, you use machine learning, you use natural language processing, you use process automation, RPA, robotic process automation, to then just do the work for you, right? And the measurement is really around productivity, efficiency, cost savings. I mean, there's, when you talked about prompting, getting to 25, 30%, that's productivity, right? I can do so much more with my time because I just spent 25% less time doing something that I would have been doing otherwise, right? And that's where hyperautomation just is this bubble around what we do every day.
I think that's a great definition. Now, as far as AI and hyperautomation, intersection, parallel worlds, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my personal view is that AI is a piece of hyperautomation. It is a critical piece of hyperautomation, because AI by itself, right, is very data sensitive, right? If there be bad data, bad AI, right? But if you take AI and pair it up with this combination of technologies, right? So you say, you know what, I want to be intelligent enough to have AI look at data, come up with a forecast or come up with some sort of situation. And then I use machine learning to make the decision that comes out of AI better and better every time. So I'm not making the same mistake, or I'm making better mistakes every time, or making better decisions. You have to pair it up. So it's got to be AI plus machine learning plus this feedback loop into going back into the hey, critique my loop, right? To tell me what I could have done better, right? And it's this whole piece that makes it the hyper automation part. So I think there is definitely an intersection between AI and hyper automation, but it's a critical part of hyper automation. And you can't have AI by itself. You can't have any of these technologies by itself, whether it's process management, whether it's building robotics, talk about robots, right? Yeah. Robots it's a combination of technologies to get a robot to move from point A to point B. So yeah, that's kind of like, that's my view on it. And you got to have all the pieces of the puzzle. And another reference I think is Legos.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Legos.
The Legos.
Legos is my favorite reference for hyper automation.
I love playing with Legos ever since a kid, and I still don't stop playing with Legos because I'm in the hyper automation business. Right now, we're just playing Legos with business processes and people and tasks, and it's all about putting those Legos together to build the most efficient building of whatever you're trying to build.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's a great analogy.
We do both internally. We leverage the tools that ConnectWise built. We leverage the Power Platform. But I typically say AI right now, it's maturing and it's on a curve, and I don't think that curve's going to stop. But if you're expecting it to do 50% offload, you're dreaming right now, because that's only some developers can do that, but most developers are still at 25%, even with GitHub Copilot, or 20%. 5 to 15% is normal. 25% offload is a good case for AI, and that's worth it. I mean, 25% offload, it's worth some level of investment. But when we do some RPA things, we get 75% offload.
Yeah, often,
and we've hit 95%. It's like, why wouldn't and where those intersect, because I think of RPA as defined routines that are predictable with minor variables in your input. AI I think of as a decision, right? So now I have a decision about maybe which routine I'm going to run, or maybe I'm reading a document with AI so that I can feed it in, or like AI can be used where it's best, but it doesn't have to try to do an arbitrary routine. Predefine that routine in RPA, and you get a whole bunch of offload. And then as these two things evolve, you get more and more, and it's that constant whittling away. Right now you're getting 20% with your, maybe you get memory and you get to 30, 35, 40, right? And then let's define some more routines, and let's see where we can get better decision making. And you just keep evolving everything, and what we do know is AI is not going to stop getting, not going to stop anytime soon. So anyway, that's how I look at it. But that's a good definition.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think there's this I'm going to overuse the word automate and automatic today, but there is an automation maturity model, right? Yeah. And we're at the beginning of this evolution of automation. Like, we've always been able to do scripting and power scripting and create basic automations, right? Now we're hyper automating it. So we're at this next level, and you start to put in AI to take it even to a hyper or a super hyper right automation
make up new
scale,
terms here
right?
today, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And when you look at it from a business perspective, right, and this is why I'm so passionate about it, you go back to what the cloud has done for businesses, allowing them to just be able, all these small businesses to be able to just get up and running, and to be able to compete against the behemoths out there that have access to money to be able to build businesses. You now take hyper automation, put it into the small, medium-sized businesses, and they're able to scale just as quickly, or be able to provide just as good customer experience as the big players out there, because they've done automation in the right way and in the most mature way.
Right.
I think that's where when adopted right, and you'll see this over the next, I think in the SMB space over the next 5 years, it will get to a very mature space where everyone's going to be doing it.
Jim, I'm going to give you the example for free here.
Okay.
Right? That you can turn around and sell off the top of this example. and it touches home so closely that you don't have, the average person doesn't have to go far to make this work in their minds. You walk into a master carpenter's workshop, and you start to see all the tools, and there's all the tools that you would come to expect, but then there's these random things just hanging around the shop. And you're like, what is that contraption? That contraption is a jig, right? And that jig was built because this master carpenter realized, I keep building this thing multiple times. I'm going to build this form that I can build it over and over again. You go into a cabinet maker's shop and they have defined jigs that they use. And that's all we're talking about with this technology is we're going to build a form to manage the repeatable process. So one, the output is controlled and understood. Its beauty is everything that we expect it to be. But more importantly, my ability to impact my efficiency with that output is scaled, by dramatic impact. So that's an example that everybody was like, I don't even have to think about that. Like that makes sense. If I'm gonna go put cabinet doors on a cabinet, I need to put them in the same place. Otherwise, they're all like this. I'm opening doors like this. So like those are practical examples that I think that the average person is like, yeah, that makes sense. We're doing that with business. Yeah, we're doing that with business processes and practices. Those same efficiencies and those same beautiful outcomes are what we're aiming for.
Well, I mean,
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was actually going to kick it over to you, Jim. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that, especially from the marketing perspective, because let's face it, MSPs overall have challenges with marketing. So, using hyper automation and AI for being able to drive more marketing content, being able to use it from just that, zero to where they need to start. Like, I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, man.
So, absolutely. Before I jump to the marketing side, as you were talking about the carpenter example, one of the things I think back, it wasn't that long ago. It's crazy how it seems so commonplace, but when did the iPhone get introduced? What year? Does anyone remember?
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
2008. Think about what we take advantage of or take we don't even think about all the tools, the automation, everything that's happening on our phones today. That wasn't the case in 2007, right? That it's like we take it for granted. It's just, this is how we do things. And this is, I can get my email. I can get, people can text me if they want me. There's so many ways people can contact us now. It's kind of crazy, but I think this is just the next wave, but with nitro behind it, right? It's just, there's so many possibilities that it can be applied to. But Will, to your question, from a marketing perspective, so where we use AI, when I say we, my team and I, one, again, I'm going to reiterate this. I know I've said it probably 3 or 4 times. In my opinion, and my team applies the same methodology, it's not a replacement, right? We're not pressing a button and out comes the perfect marketing campaign or marketing video or creative asset or whatever. It's that tool. Going even back to the carpenter scenario, if I walked in and I saw a standard hammer, a standard handsaw, I could still build what I wanted to build. It's going to take me longer, right? Or if I had an electric hammer, right? And I'm not a carpenter, so I'm going to butcher all these, but power tools, right?
We pick that up with the electric hammer.
Yeah, the electric hammer. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But you guys get what I'm saying. It's just, it's a better tool to get us more efficient. So, so where do we use it? So from a copywriting perspective, we definitely use it. But we only use it again to get us either from, Will, like you mentioned, ideation, right? We'll do some, just idea brainstorming, get some ideas, then we'll get out, we'll put it on the whiteboard and we'll kind of vet it out. From say we're doing a blog post. Once we have a framework of what we're wanting to put in, we might put it into either OpenAI or Jasper. Jasper is another really good tool, if you haven't played around with that, to get us 25, 30% there. Yeah. Then it goes to the actual copywriter. They'll edit it. They'll refine it. It then comes back to me. I give a final proofing, usually have 1 or 2 edits, and then it goes. But it sped up the process a lot. And, as you're looking at copywriting specifically, and we could have a whole session on how do you optimize your website and SEO and all those elements, and content's a big component of that, and consistent content and routine and written in a certain way, all those things. If we can do more, that helps us, right? And that's better for our customers. It's better for people trying to learn about what we're trying to do and all that kind of stuff. The caution sign, please read the back of the label thing, is just don't try to use it and kick out mass content with the one and done or two and done. And hey, this is 100% and I don't need to hire anybody. I'm going to hire somebody with no experience, and they're just going to be able to put stuff into ChatGPT and it's going to kick it out. You will get content. It just won't be very good. And people will see a lot of delves in there, right? So from copywriting, we do that. From social posting, we'll do that, right? We'll say, hey, we want to do a social campaign on this. Give us ideas on what that cadence should look like, and the topics and the headlines and so forth. And then my team member who manages social media will then go through and use that, refine it, and then we'll review it and so forth. So we use it for social. My graphic designer uses it. Now, probably one of the best graphic designers I've ever worked with, and he is uber fast without AI, but just little stuff that he can go into Firefly or Photoshop and whatever, and rearrange stuff, get stuff out faster, match things faster. When you're using the generative features within Adobe's done a great job. We haven't found a tool that I feel comfortable using to create generative AI images that I'm like, yeah, that's usable yet. I'm sure it's going to come probably by the end of this episode. We'll have something out that everyone can use. But Adobe, I will give mega props to Adobe. They've done a great job, and they've allowed him to be much faster.
Awesome.
A tool that everyone uses, all of us on this call use, most people who are listening use, PowerPoint. PowerPoint has great AI tools in there now that can help, refine stuff, give you some great images. It's a good starting point. It's not a final product, but it's a good starting point. So those are some basic creative stuff that we'll use it for. Me personally, from my role, I'll use it to like I mentioned earlier, the note taking, right? I'll use that, and that's just almost like an assistant. It'll give me good output on my notes, and something that I feel comfortable sending out. But here's the key thing that I'll throw out there. Remember, be cautious what you're putting in there, right? So I can't put all my notes in there, right? It's not a walled garden. So I'm very selective on what I use it for. But just treat it with caution. But those are some high level stuff that we use it for. And then I mentioned the voiceover for video, and so forth.
Love it. That's awesome. So,
real quick comment, Jim. When you talked about the phone in 2008 and having access to it, right? I want to go back to my third grade teacher that would yell at me of like, you can't use a calculator. You're not going to always have a calculator with you when you grow up.
Right.
I'm like, yes, I will. And here comes the iPhone. Yes, I do.
Little did they know we would in fact always have a calculator.
Absolutely.
So Oz, we got like 4 minutes left. I wanna talk with you real quick on with again AI, hyper automation. They go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Next 6 months, man. Like what are you seeing that are going to make some of the biggest impacts on your life and your team's life in that intersection within the next 6 months?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges with hyper automation is where do you start?
Yeah.
And where do you, and then what's the next step after starting? Where do you end? Right? It's taking that end-to-end automation journey. And I think AI is going to be a critical part of almost like a horizontal layer on top of that. Mm-hmm. It's going to read your business. It's going to take an input of your operations, tell you where do you start? Where do you want to automate? Right? And it'll start to prompt you with, good AI will say, you know what, you've done this process 50 times. Keith, do you want to automate this? And then AI starts to walk you through that, through the wizard of creating these automations. And then I think, so that's what I see foresee happening.
That's wild.
If we take it just a notch above that, like let's say we got that, we've figured out all our major processes are automated. Now let's figure out if we can have AI as part of our team, Like it's an actual worker on your team that extends. It's learned enough, right? It's done some machine learning. It's had thousands of examples. So now let's make it part of the team. So it's actually a smart digital bot that will already give you the answer to what you want before you as part of the team. So you don't even have to like ask it. It's just going to be part of the team. It's going to recognize that you have a question or you want to do something with an operation and say, hey, I suggest these three. Which one do you want to pick? Right. And that's what I see happening.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
One of the things that we like to do and I would offer to people is business process mapping is a little bit tedious, but create that Visio and put all your stuff on there and don't boil the ocean.
Yeah.
Pick a couple squares and say, well, I can automate this.
Yeah.
I can automate that. And you'll find after a year of working on that you will have whittled away at that big old process to where it's a lot more manageable. But that rather than thinking I have to, how do I get started? Just draw something out and pick one of the components and start there. Maybe
one thing I'll throw out to piggyback off of that, it is daunting, right? I mean, for a lot of people, I mean, you think, okay, AI, they log into ChatGPT, it's a prompt. It's like, what do I put in there? Right. And okay, it's giving me text, but what does that do for me? There's the long-term study of it and getting really good at it. There's also some really good tools out there that are leveraging AI for specific applications. And that's a great way to start, right? You don't need to be the expert with your own data lake in the back and your own walled garden version today, immediately. Great long-term goal, right? All that good stuff. But short term right now, see what tools are out there. And to your point, that you mentioned, what small little task can I automate? Can I make a little bit faster? Can I improve my processes? Can I be a little bit more efficient? And again, we're just remembering that it's not perfect and it's not going to give you something that's 100% usable, but it's going to get you so much further than you were before you started using it. And so that would be my advice. Just start small and get really good there. And don't try, like you said, don't try to boil the ocean out of the gate. So.
And Jim, just one addition to what you say, right? I would almost come in as a user, and what do I do every day that I dread doing every day? How do I automate that? Right?
Note taking.
If I can automate that, exactly. Note taking, right?
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. All right. Well, everybody, I love the conversation we had today. This was a lot of fun. Jim, we would love to have you back. Oz, love to have you back as well in the future. We are out of time today. So for those of you that watched live, thank you so much. We appreciate your viewership, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, Demystifying AI for MSPs. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.